To learn to live the off-grid lifestyle and to be inspired to live your dreams, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Click the bell notification. It's all free. Well, 2 more days and I'll start butchering the meat chickens. So we'll butcher them on the first day, pressure can on the second day, may skip a day, and then butcher 3 more. So it's going to take about 2 weeks to butcher all our meat chickens, which will put us right at 12 weeks. So we'll start with the largest ones and work our way to the smallest ones. Obviously they'll keep growing for the next 2 weeks, so hopefully they're all about 10 pounds. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I weighed the largest rooster and he weighed 10 pounds on the spot. That'd be about 7 pounds of dressed meat. We'll lose a little bit more from the bone, but not too much. So 21 pounds is what we're expecting to butcher each day. All right, we have 2 canners. Each canner holds 10 pints. Each pint holds just roughly about a pound of food. That should give us right there 21 pounds, 20 pints. Now I think that what we have going here, since we don't have a freezer, is probably the best way to do things. I've done a lot of different types of things in my past. I've processed deer, I've processed 2 goats, and I can't tell you how many sheep I've processed, quite a few. And I went to an auction one time and bought a pig. I think it was one time, might have been 2 times, and bought a pig, about $100. Brought it home that day and butchered it. Now I know you're supposed to let it rest overnight, but it was still pretty warm, so I wanted to get it processed right away. That being said, we ground it all up. We made sausage out of most of it. I think we had like 2 pork butts out of it. You just cook those all day in a crock pot and they become pretty tender. So I've done quite a bit of butchering in my life and processing and storing. Now, of course, when I processed the pig, I had a freezer, a deep freezer. It was a big one. And like I said, my wife and I at the time was able to do the whole thing. I think my daughter got involved also. Was able to do it all in a day. Went to the auction early in the morning, got it home, and processed it. So being off grid, you got to think a little bit about how you're going to preserve food. We have considered buying a freezer here. I would need 10 more solar panels, I'm sure of it. We've also considered just buying a full-size refrigerator instead of our little apartment size. Then I'd only need a couple more solar panels, and that would give us a bigger freezer than what we currently have. But I still don't think it would hold an entire pig. It'd be close. As you know, I have cured meat, salt cured it. We go to the store, we buy the salt cure off, it's Morton salt cure is what it is. Get it off Amazon. I've got several videos on that. And so what we do there is we'll buy our 30 days worth of meat and we'll stuff that into the freezer. Then we cure the meat and put it in the refrigerator. Now you can keep that meat out of the refrigerator for 2 weeks. So what you do is you put the salt on it, you put the meat in the refrigerator for 3 days, then you can take it out of the refrigerator. It stays good for about 2 weeks. The problem is it's still got moisture in it. Some people believe that's an indefinite storage process. It has an endless shelf life, but it doesn't. It's still pretty moist inside. And moisture is what causes the bacteria to grow. The salt draws that moisture out, but not all of it. Now there is a way to do it. You could get yourself a barrel or a bucket of salt, put your meat right in there and just leave it. But that is going to be some really salty meat. And the only reason you would do it, simply because you just want to preserve it. But you're going to drink a gallon of water every time you eat it. I mean, we drink a lot of water now when we eat the cured meat we have. So after 2 weeks, I can put it in the refrigerator for about another 2 weeks. So that gives me about a month before the meat goes bad. And we've had that cured meat go bad before. Like I said, we go to the store, we buy our 30 days worth of meat, we put it in the freezer. But the thing is that at the end of the 2 weeks, we can take the cured meat and put it in the freezer because now the freezer is empty enough to do that with. But it is not a long-term solution to storing food. Some people have suggested smoking meat. Now again, Google this. I would have to invest quite a bit of money to build a smoker. But even at that, smoking meat does not give you an endless shelf life. And depending on what web pages you look at, it can be anywhere from 2 or 3 days shelf life to 2 or 3 weeks. But it is not an endless shelf life. You still have to put it in the freezer. Now I know a lot of people say, well, they used to do it a long time ago. Yeah, and I only remember watching videos in Alaska when they would smoke it. They leave it in the smoker. My guess is it would freeze. That's my guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I don't understand smokers and Google's not giving me all the information I need. I don't know. But in the end, I want long-term storage, long shelf lives. Now there's another way you could dehydrate your meat, like a jerky. And again, it's got moisture in it. It lasts a little longer. I think you can leave it out for 2 weeks without refrigeration. And if you put it in a vacuum sealed bag, it'll last longer. So when you butcher a pig, there's a lot of meat that you're gonna have to contend with. So putting it in the freezer is your best option. You can do that the fastest. Grind it up or whatever you're gonna do with it and throw it in the freezer. Smoking would be the next best option, but of course there's not a long shelf life. Dehydrating, that would be pretty tough, dehydrating that much meat all at once. And then of course there's curing, and you could cure that much meat pretty quickly. It's not hard to cure meat, just spread salt on it. If you were going to do anything other than canning, cure meat and smoking meat would probably be the easiest if you don't have a freezer. Again, you don't have long shelf life. So with us, we can. And canning, according to the FDA, gives you a shelf life of a year. Now, I don't recommend you do this. I don't recommend you violating the FDA's recommendations. But I have eaten food that was older than a year old when it was canned, pressure canned. So that's why we decided to raise chickens. Now you could raise chickens and rabbits, and you can can both of them. And what we do is pretty much just put it into a pint jar. Gives us a pound of food. Carolyn and I eat 1 pound of food. We'll mix it in with dumplings or noodles. Get you chicken noodle soup or chicken and dumplings. That makes a really good meal. Usually it gives us leftovers also. The other day she cooked chicken noodle soup. I had 2 bowls, she had 1 bowl, I think, maybe 2 bowls, I'm not sure. And then the next day we had it for lunch, and she had a bowl and I had a bowl. So that's quite a few meals. Now, if you use egg noodles, we have the chicken, so we make our own noodles from eggs. So everything now has just become self-sustaining. We can do it all ourselves. The reason I bring this up is I've been asked several times, why don't we get a smoker? Why don't we dehydrate? This morning, someone asked me if I wanted to buy a pig, and she listed all her prices off. Yes, I would love to buy a pig. I'd like to raise a pig. Now you should butcher a pig in the fall, when the temperatures are below 50 degrees, 40s to 50s, and you let it hang overnight for 24 hours. If it was a deer or a goat, it would give you more time to process, and you might be able to can that much meat. I can only can at most 40 pounds of meat, and that's working all day long. The best plan would be 20 pounds of meat. Well, a pig can weigh up to what, 100 pounds, 200 pounds. If I had a week or two to can that much food, then it would be a viable solution. Now a deer, it can stay out in fall temperatures for about 4 days. Actually recommend it so the meat's not so tough. I think they said goats would last 2 weeks. And like I said, I butchered goats before, so I kind of agree with that. It doesn't spoil real fast in fall temperatures. Now, my grandpa used to cure meat. I think he did it in the falls, what he did, and he left it out in the well house. And I remember this so vividly. They would last forever out there. So the only thing that we can think, my dad and I, is he cured it in the fall when the temperatures were real cold, and then it would freeze, and they would eat it before winter was over, which actually makes quite a bit of sense. I think that would probably be a good solution. Put it in the well house, there was no heat in there, the animals couldn't get in there. With it being cured, you're gonna get 2 weeks out of it, a month in cold temperatures, and if it freezes, then it's indefinite. So even if it thawed out a few times throughout the winter, it wouldn't hurt you. So I think that's a solution. But again, you got to make sure that you do it in the fall time. So that's the only way I could actually have a pig, is if I had a storage area that I could put the meat in outside in the storage area and cure it. But remember, that is high in salt, and salt dehydrates you. When you get dehydrated, then you're going to have high blood pressure. If you don't drink enough water, I mean, you got to drink a lot of water when you're eating ham and cured meats. So remember, the health of it isn't that good either. There's also a lot of nitrates and nitrites in cured meats. And they say that that's not healthy for you. I mean, that's debatable, and you can, talk to your doctor about that or whatever. But that's in bacon also. Now imagine that, cured meat. Bacon is cured meat. Would you put your bacon in your storage shelf outside, in your pantry? Of course not. You put it in the fridge. Well, that's what we're talking about here, is cured meat. Bacon is cured. And think about it, when you touch it, that moisture is still on your hands. Now I read that E. coli can make you sick with only 10 E. coli bugs in the food. So it doesn't take much to make you sick. So I think canning is the best solution to long-term storage, which means now you have to raise animals that you can actually process in a day's time. So like chickens. I can process 3 chickens, keep the other ones alive, and then when I'm ready for the next 3, go to the next 3. Same thing with rabbits. Now, while I'm on the subject of chickens, I keep seeing Facebook posts where they have these chicken processing parties. They invite all their friends over and they spend all day processing chicken. And a lot of these people are saying, I'll never do that again. That's a lot of work. And so you spend all weekend butchering your 25 or 50 chickens or whatever you got. If you're burning yourself out, then it's not a way to go. So I hope I can inspire you to figure out how to preserve your foods so you can live your dream. Thanks for watching.